Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a critical strategic briefing on the future of one of the world's largest economies. We're breaking down India's 2035 climate strategy and its updated nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. Look, this isn't just about the environment, okay? This is literally a massive blueprint for how a nation completely re-engineers its entire economy for the future.
So, picture this real-world problem. Imagine a rapidly growing nation that absolutely must double its energy output over the next few decades just to lift millions out of poverty and drive industrialization. But it has to do all of that while simultaneously and drastically cutting its carbon emissions. How does a country even survive that kind of core tension? I mean, how do you balance massive economic development with urgent, non-negotiable climate action? Well, that's exactly the tightrope India is walking right now.
To build deep conceptual mastery of this incredibly complex shift, we're going to use our master framework today. We'll look at the global climate challenge, unpack India's triple targets and the implementation ecosystem, analyze the strategic and global impact, uncover some hidden roadblocks, and then lock it all in with a master revision. Let's get into it.
Part 1. The Global Climate Challenge, stepping up when others step back. Okay, let's start with the why. In March 2026, India announced its updated NDCs for the 2031 to 2035 period. And to understand why this matters right now, we really have to look at the broader geopolitical context. You see, currently, several developed nations are actually rolling back their climate policies. Some are even slapping on unilateral trade measures. So this move by India, it's incredibly significant. It represents concrete Global South leadership. It sends a highly credible signal that India is doubling down on its commitment to climate multilateralism and climate justice, right at a time when the global community desperately needs it.
Part 2. India's triple climate targets, the evolution of ambition.
So, what exactly are they promising to do here? Let's get into the what. The first of three monumental pillars focuses on reducing the emissions intensity of its GDP. The new updated goal for 2035 is a 47% reduction compared to 2005 baseline levels. Now, what's really vital here is the momentum. Notice how India already achieved a 36% reduction back in 2020. They're on track to beat their older 2030 target of a 45% reduction early. But, analytically speaking, we've got to remember that in any system, those incremental gains get significantly harder as your overall efficiency improves. Squeezing out those last few percentage points is going to require massive innovation.
Which leads us directly to the second pillar, energy capacity. The target here is a staggering 60% of cumulative installed electricity capacity coming from non-fossil sources by 2035. That means solar, wind, hydro, biomass, and nuclear. That leaves only 40% for fossil sources. Just to give you some context on how ambitious this is, India already met its previous 2030 target years early, hitting over 52% non-fossil capacity as of February 2026. So they are taking a massive leap forward with this 60% goal. And then we have the third pillar. 4 billion, that's billion with a B. India is targeting the creation of an additional carbon sink of 3.5 to 4.0 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through enhanced forest and tree cover by 2035. As of 2025, they had already created a sink of 2.29 billion tons. Let's unpack this logically, though. Creating a sink of up to 4 billion tons requires vast amounts of land for afforestation. In a country with a huge population density and intense geographic land scarcity, hitting that specific number, it's going to be an extreme logistical challenge.
Part 3. The implementation ecosystem, a whole-of-society shift.
Now, moving to the how. How does a nation actually hit numbers this huge? Well, reaching these targets requires moving way beyond just printing government policies. It demands a systemic, whole-of-society transformation. The core approach is seamlessly aligning climate objectives with national development priorities. India's strategy is deeply rooted in the principle of CBDRC-RC, that's common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. Essentially, this principle ensures the strategy respects equity. It harmonizes global climate demands with India's actual reality on the ground, its developmental needs, and its absolute non-negotiable requirement for energy security.
To actually pull this off, the strategy is categorized across three levels, moving from top-tier international diplomacy all the way down to what's happening in your neighborhood. Step 1 focuses on global partnerships, forging massive initiatives like the International Solar Alliance and the Global Biofuel Alliance. Step 2 is the industrial strategy. This integrates goals through heavy economic drivers like the Green Hydrogen Mission and Production-Linked Incentive, or PLI, schemes. And finally, Step 3, which is absolutely crucial, is grassroots action. Through initiatives like PM Surya Ghar for rooftop solar and the LIFE movement, which stands for Lifestyle for Environment, they're transforming things like tree plantation drives and sustainable living into true citizen-led mass movements.
Part 4. Strategic and Global Impact Beyond the Environment.
Okay, let's talk about the impact. When you implement a whole-of-society ecosystem like we just talked about, the results ripple outwards, way beyond just the environment. These policies directly rewire the economy. These 2035 updates act as an accelerated path toward India's ultimate goal of net zero emissions by 2070. Plus, they serve as the bedrock for the Viksit Bharat vision, which is the goal of a fully developed India by 2047. On a tangible human level, this massive transition in the renewable energy and EV sectors is expected to spark a huge surge in green employment and new industrial opportunities, specifically targeting youth and women. It's a complete economic pivot.
But impact isn't just about stopping future emissions, right? It's about surviving the climate changes that are happening right now. That requires vital adaptation frameworks. We're talking about securing vulnerable coastlines through the Mishti Mangrove Restoration Initiative, enforcing coastal regulations, and building advanced early warning systems for cyclones. Protecting the systems and the people is really half the battle here.
Part 5. The Hidden Roadblocks, the Illusion versus Reality.
Now, as focused learners, we need to apply some critical thinking. No massive transition is without severe bottlenecks. Welcome to the limitations. There's a vital aha moment here when it comes to understanding energy grids. India's installed non-fossil capacity is an impressive 52%. But the actual non-fossil electricity generation, it's only about 25%. Why is there such a massive illusion here? One word: intermittency. The sun sets, the wind stops. Without affordable large-scale battery storage solutions, you can have all the installed capacity in the world, but you simply cannot generate and dispatch that power constantly when the grid actually demands it.
So we have to look at the harsh, interconnected barriers that need to be solved. In the financial sector, India requires a staggering 40 to 50 billion US dollars annually just to expand clean energy, all while fighting uncertain global climate finance and carbon border taxes. Technologically, solving that intermittency problem means a heavy dependence on imported materials, like lithium for batteries. And then there's the elephant in the room: energy security. Coal still accounts for nearly 75% of actual electricity generation. Transitioning away from that too rapidly risks severe economic disruption and job losses in a country that desperately needs reliable baseload power.
And beyond the economics, there are hard physical limitations, specifically the afforestation challenge. To sustain the massive tree plantation required for a 4 billion-ton carbon sink and to acquire the vast tracts of land needed for mega solar and wind parks, you run straight into a wall: the stark reality of land scarcity in a highly populated nation.
Part 6. Master Revision and Takeaways.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from global strategy right down to grid-level challenges. Let's look to the future and lock in these key takeaways to ensure you retain the core structure of today's explainer. First, evolution. India is updating its targets early because they're beating past goals ahead of schedule. Second, the triple focus. Remember the numbers: 60% non-fossil capacity, a 47% intensity cut, and a massive 4 billion-ton carbon sink. Third, key concepts. The strategy relies heavily on CBDRC equity, the citizen-led life movement, and a true whole-of-society approach. Fourth, the core gap. Never forget the massive difference between installed capacity and actual generation because of renewable intermittency. And fifth, core barriers. That $40 to $50 billion annual finance gap and a systemic, ongoing dependence on coal for grid stability.
And everything we've discussed today is building toward one ultimate goal: overcoming these daunting challenges through advanced technologies like carbon capture and international cooperation. That isn't just about satisfying a UN treaty. It's the absolute prerequisite for the vision of Viksit Bharat, creating a prosperous, fully developed, and incredibly climate-resilient nation by 2047.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for today. Can massive economic expansion and aggressive decarbonization truly coexist in the real world? Or will global finance gaps force developing nations into a tough compromise? It is literally the ultimate geopolitical puzzle of our time, and India is right at the center of it. Think on that, keep analyzing the data, and we'll see you next time on The Explainer.